Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 50,000 subscriber Q&A. It feels absolutely unreal to be saying that after I quit my corporate job 2.5 years ago to start chasing adventures around the world, and now taking these opportunities where we sit down and chat together to bestow all of the lessons learned and wisdom from my corporate experience, but also my current experience as an online coach and my 2 years on the road traveling the world. I've got a very special surprise for you today because normally these Q&As are a combination of deep and philosophical questions, mindset related things, also some light and funny things, fitness stuff, travel stuff. But today we've got the best of the best because I have been inundated with some fantastic questions. So I'm very excited to get into it and have a little chat. As always, we've got a new location for today. How funky are the colours in this place? I'm in Indonesia now on the island of Lombok, and I've been here for 3 weeks and it's been an absolute delight. You catch me in a very zen mood because I'm constantly chasing things, pursuing things, working on business, and I've taken the last 3 weeks to just really decompress and live in the moment. And so I'm extremely content right now. Which is not something I always say, so it's a great time for us to be sitting down and having a chat. That is actually an unintentional perfect segue into the first question, which is, what is your definition of success? And this is something that I think everyone should think long and hard about what success looks like to them. But I think the core fundamentals of that question are you content on a day-to-day basis? Now, that contentment for different people will require different amounts of hedonism and suffering for future goals. And so for you, it's important to find out what that combination looks like, how much fun and enjoyment you need to have on an everyday basis, and how much you need to be working towards the future best version of yourself in order to be successful and feel content. And so for me, success is doing enough on a daily basis that I feel I've got an upwards trajectory towards improving and becoming the best version of myself and gradually improving my life in whatever domain I feel important, but also not sacrificing your inner peace of mind on a daily basis to an extent where you're miserable. Because, multimillionaires and billionaires around the world, they work so hard and they achieve this thing where they're, mega rich or successful in whatever domain it may be, but have they actually enjoyed the journey and have they actually enjoyed the experience of living every single moment and not every single moment, you can't enjoy every moment, but every single day. And so for me, a successful person is someone that's content in their day-to-day, they're working towards meaningful long-term goals, and they're not having to suffer extremely on a daily basis. And so that is how I define success for myself. Can you explain your reasoning behind you should be willing to kill anything you're willing to eat? Now, this question is a callback to a video I made 2 years ago when I first started traveling. I went to the Philippines on a boat expedition, a remote island expedition for 4 days, I think it was. It was called the Tao Experience on the island of Palawan. And as part of that, I met the owner of the experience, the founder of the company. And when we landed on the final island, they are completely self-sufficient. So they make their own vegetables and they rear their own livestock for food. And then all of the guests consume that food and then move on after the trip has finished. And they'd ran out of meat, or I should say, they'd run out of dead animals and meat ready to serve when we arrived. And so I was chatting to the owner and he said to me, he picked up on the fact that I was looking for new experiences, and that's the reason I was traveling, to experience new things and explore myself. And he said, well, listen, we've got no meat left, and so I need to kill a pig today in order to feed everyone, all of the guests. And so he basically, hadn't put the knife in my hand, and he said, you said you wanted new experiences, are you going to do it? And I'd pondered this on and off a lot in the past, and there was no way in my mind that I could say no to that. And a combination of prior processing and processing with hindsight made me solidify the belief that if you're going to be willing to eat something, you should be willing to kill it. That was my mindset at the time. And the way I justify this is, if you were to think about murder of another human, if I ask you, are you willing to murder another human? You would say, no, murder's bad, I don't want to do that, I don't want to take a life. And then if I were to say to you, okay, well, are you interested in me telling someone else to murder someone? So if you authorize the death of another human, how would you feel about that? You would probably also say, no, I'm still complicit in the murder. I've authorized the death of that person still. I've just removed myself one step by asking someone else to do it. And it's exactly the same with meat. Or the death of animals. So if you think, I can't kill an animal, it's too mean, they're nice, beautiful beings, then you shouldn't be authorizing someone else to do that dirty work for you, in my opinion. Or I shouldn't, at least. I think should is a very dangerous word. This is a separate topic, but I'm trying to get out of the habit of saying should, because I don't want to bestow the way that I live my life onto anyone else. But my sense is that I should not be authorizing someone else to kill an animal if I'm not willing to take on that moral and ethical burden myself. And it was a very interesting experience. I would like to kill another animal in order to ground myself with that experience again, but it was extremely emotional. I remember being fairly somber for a few hours or days after even. And the people around me were kind of joking about it, like, you killed the meat, we're eating the pig that you killed, kind of thing. And I was thinking, well, I've just had a very emotional experience putting this 8-inch blade through the throat and into the heart of a pig. And so I was still processing. It was looking me in the eyes as it, knew it was about to die. It was extremely emotional. And these other people that hadn't seen it or witnessed it kind of took it lightly because they're so disconnected from the experience of eating meat. And so, it's something I'd like to ground myself and connect with again as I continue to eat meat in the pursuit of health and survival on this planet. What are helpful ways to regard pain and discomfort, and what if there is no associated growth from it? Pain and discomfort without any meaning behind it is extremely difficult to navigate, because the human mind can overcome pretty much any amount of pain and suffering as long as we have meaning in order to justify it with. But I think the main thing that I can pick up on this question is, what if there's no associated growth from it? And there is always associated growth from pain. Simply the experience of you having to deal with and overcome that pain is going to teach you something about yourself. And even if you think you're stagnant and you're suffering for no reason, I promise you there's going to be lessons in that suffering that you'll look back on in years to come and think, wow, I actually learned so much about myself or the world or whatever, gained so many skills from that period of suffering or enlightenment, whatever it may be. So it could be something fairly trivial. But when I was studying at university engineering, I worked for an engineering company, and I was sat there in the office and everyone looked like they wanted to kill themselves. It was a pretty depressing place. And I ended up, 8 hours work a day, I ended up only working about 3 hours a day, because the job was fairly straightforward and I just got through the work, and the rest of it was kind of dead time. And I thought to myself, I feel like I'm wasting this year because there's so many hours in the day that I'm kind of killing time and not actually learning anything. And it was only with hindsight, after moving on as the year was finishing, that I realized, I couldn't spend that time working on myself or watching self-development videos or whatever. But what did I learn in that time? I learned so much about the social dynamics of being in a workplace, dealing with people, and everything in between, because it was my first proper work experience. So even though I felt like there was time squandered, I learned what it was like to, feel meaningless and have a lack of purpose in a certain regard, and then also all of those interperson dynamics that came with it. And then also there was the pain and suffering of my job, which I may get into as a result of another question, where I worked at a corporate job for 3 years. And in the moment, it can often feel like there's nothing that you can learn, or there's no positive reason to be experiencing a certain amount of pain. But with the hindsight and experiences that I've gained now, it's so clear that you're constantly learning about yourself when you're experiencing pain. And I would take that on board for sure. Do you get hit on by a lot of women? I would say no in general. I think women tend not to use explicitly hitting on men as an approach. Typically what a woman will do is she'll give you a signal that she's interested, and that might be lingering eye contact or lingering body position. They'll put themselves in your space so that you're aware that they're interested. Typically you can tell if anyone's interested in you, whether it's platonic or sexual, by are they asking questions, are you engaging in an interesting conversation. And so I think that's also the most successful method for men to approach things as well, because as soon as you start hitting on someone, you're declaring, either we're going to have sex or engage in a long-term relationship, and then you're all of a sudden putting a lot of pressure on them to decide, are you interested in me in a sexual way, or are you interested in me in a relationship way? And then that puts a lot of pressure on. You just start as two humans interacting with each other, get to know each other, have a chat, see if you vibe, and then let things naturally progress from there. You express your interest by asking questions, seeing if they want to hang out more, and then very quickly, it develops into whatever page you're both on. And as a man as well, it's important to get used to and be comfortable with rejection. So in a scenario where a woman would look at me and I think she's interested, and I'm interested, there'll be a case of going over, risking rejection, see what happens. Maybe they'll say, yeah, let's hang out sometime. Maybe they say, no, I've got a boyfriend or I'm not interested. But you've got to go through the period of getting rejected a lot in order to not miss out on opportunities. What is your definition of power? My definition of power is the amount of power you have, is the amount of influence you have over your environment. I would say you're a powerful being if you're able to influence the people around you, the environment around you, and not be at the mercy of other people's will. And so if you're powerful, it means you can command your day-to-day experiences and not be at the mercy of someone else's power, because there's always a hierarchy. Someone's always in charge. Yeah, that's how I define power. What is the greatest lesson you've learned about business? Something that I'm going through now after 2 years of being kind of self-employed in some capacity, knowing that I'm working for myself and going to continue working for myself, is that it's amazing that when you scale, the difference in the challenges that you have to overcome. So initially it's a case of you're a one-man show, you put all of the work in on your own and you just work flat out, non-stop days, and then that gets you to a certain point, at which point you're limited by your daily bandwidth and you only have your 24 hours in a day, and all of a sudden that limits your scalability. And so there's a stage where when building any business, you go from one man to maybe business partner or 1 or 2 employees to maybe 10 employees and then 1,000 employees, and the different challenges that one would have in jumping from ladder to ladder, super interesting. And the difference in mindset of spending money to make money and investment and risk, it's a complicated thing. And so that's why so many people are employed rather than employers. And so I suppose that's not really a lesson, but that's the biggest challenge and source of intrigue for me over the next 6 months for sure. What is the greatest lesson you've learned about relationships? From the same person. About relationships, I think, I can't remember the exact analogy, but there's, if you want to catch a butterfly, you don't go out with a net and try and catch them. The most effective way is to build a beautiful garden and let the butterflies come to you. And so this applies to platonic friendships or romantic relationships as well. This is something that I've done over the last decade, I would say. For example, when I was at university, I wasn't going out and chasing things and trying to get women, because I recognized, I'm not the person I want to be. I'm not the best version of myself. And so any energy expended in chasing things is going to be far less fruitful than just becoming a better version of me, both physically, building up my confidence, my charisma, and then also my body as well, to allow me to interact with the world in a way that was more fruitful. And so the underlying point there is that becoming the best version of yourself and being magnetic and attractive is a far more effective strategy of building positive relationships with both friends and romantic interests, rather than constantly chasing and running around trying to chase things. And the same applies for when a butterfly's in your garden. A lesson you can learn about relationships is there's no time, and space is always moving, and so there's no finality in something like that. So a friend that you have now isn't necessarily a friend forever. A lover that you have now isn't necessarily, and often isn't, a lover forever, And so you need to constantly be doing work. You need to keep working on the garden so that it's a mutually beneficial relationship for all involved. When you start projecting your needs and desires onto someone else, that's when a relationship starts to fail. You've got to focus on being the type of person that they want to hang out with, and they've got to focus on being the type of person that you want to hang out with, and that's the best way to make things flourish for sure. What is it like being you? That's a good question. Sometimes really good, sometimes really bad. This couple of weeks has been an interesting journey of self-development over the last 3 weeks, because I've really focused on letting go of material success. And when I say that, I don't mean physical things. I mean building business, making money, whatever it may be. And I've just focused on, not in a hedonistic way, but just enjoying my day-to-day without feeling like I have desires that I'm constantly pursuing. And so that's something, all type A personalities, perhaps you watching this as well, where you're constantly trying to grow or learn. You're watching a Q&A to learn from a guy that's somewhat successful, and you're trying to apply that to yourself. There's a healthy amount of doing that, and there's also an unhealthy amount of doing that. And so I typically, in my brain, I'm always thinking about what's next, how can I grow, how can I improve. But it's important to take the time to just decompress. And sometimes I struggle to switch that side of me off. I very effectively switched it off over the last couple of weeks, but so I'm constantly burdened by the necessity to be great, and so it's positive because it's a positive energy that pushes you on to achieve things, and it's got me to the point in my life that I am now. But there's an amount of psychological, emotional, and mental load that comes along with that, which I'm very happy that I've managed to dissipate over the last few weeks, but it will come straight back when we're back in England for sure. What great thing would you attempt if you knew you could not fail? I first read this question when it came in and was very happy when I came up with my answer on like literally instantaneously. What great thing would you attempt if you could not fail? I think the whole purpose of the whole value in achieving great things is the fact that you can fail. And so I was thinking, what monumentous thing would be amazing to achieve if you could not fail? And I think it would lose its value entirely if you could not fail, if there was no risk associated with it. Without risk, there's no story, there's no jeopardy. And so I couldn't say that there's no great thing I would attempt if I could not fail, because the fact that you could fail is what makes it great. For example, I'm rowing across the North Atlantic with 3 friends in the military this summer in June, in just over 6 months' time, and there's a very high probability that things are going to go tits up and become far more difficult than any of us could have imagined, and that inherent risk is what makes it a great story. How to start a fitness journey is the next question. Now this is the worst question out of all of them, because you know exactly how to start a fitness journey. I'm sure you do. It's very simple. It's a case of watching some videos online, Googling it, YouTube beginner's workout, and then just learning piece by piece. All you have to do is start. Be willing to be really bad at something and just continue to learn. So the core fundamentals of fitness are exercise and recovery. Recovery is broken down into 2 parts, which is your sleep and your nutrition. So learning about what nutrition is important for building whatever fitness goals you have in mind, and then also your training, so understanding the way in which you should be training. So literally just Googling it, YouTubing it. If you have no money, that's entirely the best way to learn. And you're going to be bad, your form's going to be bad, you're going to be learning things constantly, but it's going to get easier and easier over time. And I actually built an app around 6 months ago for this exact purpose. I made it super cheap for the version of myself at 16 to 18 years old that didn't know what he was doing. And I've put all of the training principles, nutrition information, all of my training programs as well, so that you have everything laid out, videos of me doing everything and explaining everything. So you have everything laid out for extremely cheap if you want to take things into your own hands and get in shape. Free for 7 days, you have literally nothing to lose. So you may as well just get it, look at it, see what you think. If it's going to be useful, you can track all of your lifts, and you have all the information you need in order to build the best physique for yourself and be the best physical version of yourself. Can you explain the reasoning behind the warm-ups you do for your workouts? Yes, I can explain the reasoning behind the warm-ups I do for my workouts. I love the warm-ups that I do for my workouts. First and foremost, the first thing that comes to my mind when I think about why I do it is quite often I'm not motivated to work out, you might be surprised to hear. And so there's an element of discipline that needs to kick me in the arse to get me into the gym. And doing a warm-up for 10 minutes is a great way to transition yourself from being a lazy arse on the sofa to getting into the gym to then actually starting to lift heavy weights. And so by doing a warm-up, you're going from having no blood flowing, having no endorphins, and just being completely static. All you have to do is tell yourself, okay, well, I don't have to worry about the workout. I'm just going to worry about warming up. So then I have the same routine that I spend 5 to 10 minutes on, warming up my spine, activating the relevant muscles. And then by the time I've done that and I've got the blood flowing, I feel, you know what? I actually feel like working out now. So that's one reason. There's 2 others. One of them is priming the relevant muscles so that you're actually stronger when you go into the workout. So the warm-ups that I do, I make sure that I'm priming the muscles and getting them loaded under light stimulus so that they feel ready to fire when I put them under heavy load. And then also we're doing kind of a lot of shoulder work, rotator cuff work, so that the tendons and ligaments are all warmed up as well, so that there's no risk of snapping anything or getting injured when you go into the heavy workouts. So that's 3 reasons. And then reason number 4 is a lot of it is, people ask me often if I do yoga or stretching, but my mobility routine, my 10-minute warm-up is so well-rounded that I don't need to do any of those activities, and so it helps me with my mobility long term, because almost every day or every training day I'm doing these movements to stay connected with my body and work on my mobility and my dynamic stretching. If you want to know the exact warm-ups that I do, I'm going to refilm some videos at some point, but there's two videos, my lower body and my upper body warm-ups. They're both inside my training app, obviously, and then there's also a couple of videos on my YouTube that you can find, Adam Radcliffe, upper body warm-up and lower body warm-up, and you'll be able to find those. Next question is, would you supplement D3 in the winter if you're in a place that had a winter? I am a very lucky man, because I've not had a winter in 3 years now, except for in 1 week's time I'm going to have my first winter again, because I go back to the UK for Christmas. And I am going to be supplementing D3. Yes, I had other questions, vitamin D in general. I had other questions related to supplements, so I'll answer them now and not answer those. What I take a multivitamin. I take 5 grams of creatine per day, and the multivitamin contains vitamin D as well. And that is it. Like, I'll have protein shakes to boost up my protein as well at various points, but 100%, especially in the UK, it's covered by cloud literally all the time. So I've been blessed in Indonesia by a lot of sun recently, so it's not been a consideration. I've also not supplemented creatine for my entire trip, so for the last 2 months I've not had any, but I'll be back on that again when I get back to the UK. Dissatisfaction with your body is a great motivation for change, but when does it go too far? My answer to this is exactly the same as my answer to the first question, how I view success. It's your level of contentment on a day-to-day basis. So it's great to use dissatisfaction with your body as motivation. That's entirely what I used and still use to some extent for training. But it goes too far when you're just plain miserable on a day-to-day basis. There's no point being miserable entirely on a day-to-day basis. You need to be content with the fact that, okay, you're in a position now that you're not happy with, but you're working on changing it over time, and just enjoy the journey, because I promise you, if you put the work in, it's going to change. It's not going to be an issue anymore, and it might suck at the moment, but just being content and being patient in your day-to-day is what makes all the difference. So yeah, don't be miserable and upset the entire time because you haven't achieved the body that you want yet. Recognize that you're putting the work in. Things are going to come together if you keep working hard. And I think that's when it goes too far, when you can't enjoy any other aspect of life because you're crippled by the feeling of insufficiency that you feel at the moment. Is the Mustang from your Nevada adventure your ideal car, or is there another one? It may surprise you to hear, I do like cars. I like going fast in things and on things. Jet skis, specifically machinery. Jet skis, cars, motorbikes, whatever. But I have no desire for material possession of anything. So I don't care about owning a Ferrari or a Mustang or any particular motorbike one day. I purely get my pleasure from the experience of interacting with that machinery. So I have no ideal car. I actually don't own a vehicle. Well, I do own a vehicle at the moment. I own a car in the UK, but not a particularly fancy one. So I will again. I like owning things when I'm in one place and when I'm settled, but don't really care about having a sports car really. All right, folks, I just took a little break because the camera overheated, the struggles of being in a tropical environment. I've had a coffee, got some sun, and now I feel electric again, so let's continue. Next question is, what is the best part of engaging with people who watch your content? Now, I used to heavily rely on YouTube when I was like 17 to 22 years old for inspiration and guidance and all those kinds of things. And so I learned a lot of the fundamentals of training, of confidence, of charisma from the internet. And so the best thing for me, of people that engage, especially with my long form videos, is the fact that I'm having a positive influence on the way that they interact with the world, both the way that they're transforming their body and then also just their spirit for adventure and their confidence. And that makes me extremely proud and happy to have that full circle impact. And yeah, the people that I coach, the direct involvement that I have in their lives is amazing, and then also the people inside my training app as well, because there's so much opportunity for us to communicate and engage. So that's for sure the most rewarding part for me. What are some of the biggest obstacles you faced in your fitness, and how did you overcome them? The biggest obstacle, 100%, is when you're starting and you have limited knowledge and limited experience. You have no idea that your starting position here and the idea of where you want to be here, that you're actually going to get there. You're like, okay, I don't have the tools, I don't have the experience, I don't have the resources in order to get from here to here. And so it's very difficult to motivate yourself for a training session, to put in the hard work when you think, is this actually going to lead to the long-term changes that I want to see? And so I overcame it by continually learning and growing and just pouring years of effort into my nutrition knowledge and understanding, and then my training knowledge and understanding and experience. And then all of a sudden, I wasted a lot of time in the start, but I got to where I wanted to be. And so the biggest obstacle and the reason that my coaching business exists is the fact that I take away all of that stress from someone. The biggest obstacle is putting in the effort and not knowing what you're going to see. Because I can guarantee, listen, mate, you're here. I know exactly what you want to achieve. I know exactly how we're going to get there. You just have to relax, follow the process, and then we know we're going to get there. And it takes away all of that stress and that lack of motivation that comes with not knowing if you're going to achieve what you've set out to. What is your opinion on rude or illicit comments? Do you ever read them or respond with anything? I typically just feel bad for people if I can't even engage in the mindset or try and empathize with the mindset of someone that would give their energy to say something negative to someone else. When you see hate, it always comes from below. It never comes from above you. Someone that's doing better than you is never going to have the time to hate you. So whether it's illicit, overly sexual, or what was the other thing you said? Rude. Yeah, I mean, it just bounces off. I feel bad for the person. I feel upset, not at what they've said to me, but like the fact that people are living their lives with such misery. So yeah, I'd read them. I respond with kindness normally. If someone's a proper dick, sometimes I'll reply with something other than kindness, but normally don't have time for it because you can't change people. Like if they're being a proper dick, I just respond with kindness normally, because anytime that you do that, it's like holding a mirror up to them and they're like, oh, I'm actually being I try not to swear here, but I'm being extremely unreasonable right now, and they realize that, and then they apologize to me, so that's pretty nice. And sometimes I'll stoop to their level. Probably, in 2 years of doing this, I've stooped to someone's level maybe 3 or 4 times. I had a YouTube short go pretty viral, got like over 1 million views, something like that, a couple of weeks ago, and so loads of hate came with that, and did pretty well to ignore that. Are there any unhelpful stereotypes that apply to people like you that you wish didn't exist? I resent that question because there's no such thing as a person like me. What is a people like you? You people? It's racist. Why are you being racist? I don't know what you mean by people like you. What is it? I'm me. I don't know if there are people like me, and I don't care what. I don't judge people with a preconceived notion of what they'll be like based on any preconceived idea, and I don't care for the opinions of others that act in that way. So no, people can have whatever stereotypes they like. If they're the type of people to stereotype, then I'm the type of person to not be friends with them. What informs your sense of ethics/morality? Simply put, I just act as if everything that I do is going to come back around to me. I think that's a pretty clear way, in the absence of a particular religious belief or a sense of moral principles. It's how would I feel if other people treated me the same way I'm treating them? And if you live that way, typically you treat people well and good things come back to you. And that's the way I put it, really. When, if ever, is the right time to get aggressive with people? I think almost never. There's no point in being explicitly aggressive in most circumstances. Only in a situation where there's a threat of physical violence is it appropriate to display some form of aggression, to say, hey, like, this isn't going to be worth your time. But typically, aggression isn't explicit. It can be implicit in a lot of cases. So like, I don't have to get aggressive with people because they look at me and they're like, well, I don't really want to fight this guy. He seems pretty calm, well-rounded, in good shape, like he would probably kill me. So like, there's an implicit aggression in existing in the way that I do. And so just keeping things diffused is always the best policy. And getting aggressive with people is never a good idea, because it's the same with the hate thing that I mentioned. Why don't get aggressive with someone that would clearly beat you in a fight, because that's just not going to end well for you. And people typically don't get aggressive with me because they know like that it's not worth the hassle. And you shouldn't get aggressive with people if you unless you're in it. It's interesting because if you're, let's talk in terms of physical conflict. If you're probably going to lose the fight, then why would you get aggressive with them? Because like, clearly it's not going to end well for you. Or if you're clearly going to win the fight, why would you get aggressive with them? You have nothing to prove, and if they start, then you're in a good position. So that's the way I look at that. Okay, the final question. of the 50,000 subscriber Q&A. What is the catalyst for male friendships in adults? Male friendships in adults. I think I'm going to go very meta on you here and pretty red-pilled, but the older you get and the wiser you get, the more you realize that all relationships are an exchange of value. There's no such thing as being loved unconditionally for who you are. Everyone wants to be loved by other people the way they're loved by their mother, but that doesn't exist in the real world. It doesn't exist in male-female relationships, and it doesn't exist in male-male relationships. And so in male friendships, it's important to remember that the catalyst for forming a friendship is some kind of mutual exchange of value. When I say that, I'm not saying that in a super rigid, autistic way of like, you give me this, I give you that. It's not an exchange in that way. It could be you have a different perspective, set of values, knowledge, experience, or principles that someone else can learn from you or them. Or potentially it's just like comedy, lightheartedness, resilience, that kind of thing, where, you know, vice versa. You all have these sets of values and principles and things you bring to the table, and I've got various friends that learn various things from me, and then I take various things from them as well. And also, typically going through hardships together as men is something that will bond you together and strengthen your relationship. So, you know, whether that's opening up emotionally or seeing each other in compromised positions and helping each other work through it, that's what strengthens bonds in male relationships for sure. Right, that was fun. I enjoyed that. I don't know how long that was. That was 20-ish questions, very good questions, all very deep questions. I hope you don't think I'm just boring now because I didn't have any funny, stupid ones. I kind of didn't get given many funny, stupid ones, so you have to work with what you're given. But they were great. I'm glad I managed to give a lot of new insight there, things that I haven't spoken about in as much detail before. And the good news for you is that we're nearly at 55,000 subscribers, and I've got more questions that were submitted for this one that I'm going to be answering right now for that one. So that'll be out very soon as well. Thank you for being here. I love you. You're my favourite, you. So yeah, don't tell any of the others. I'm enjoying being in Indonesia. I'm going to be back in England. There's going to be lots more videos. Just don't stress out, all right? Hopefully you've taken the stuff that you've been ready to hear from the stuff that I've said today. Hopefully you take that on board and it resonates with you somehow. And there'll be some stuff, maybe you'll watch this again in a year or two and think, or maybe you won't watch it again, but you'll think, oh, Adam said that thing 2 years ago, and now I thought he was an idiot at the time, and now it makes sense. Or maybe you just think I'm an idiot overall. I don't mind. You can comment that if you want. No, don't comment that. That's not very nice, is it? That's online hate. I already told you how I deal with that. I'll be too nice to you. So yeah, thanks for watching. This is fun, isn't it? It's nice documenting my life on the internet, because I'll go back and watch this video and be able to tap into the way I'm thinking, the way I'm communicating, and that's going to continually evolve over time as well. But yeah, it's a real pleasure. I hope you enjoy these talking stuff. God, my English is good, isn't it? This talking stuff as much as you enjoy the adventures. There's going to be a lot more adventures, and there's probably adventures on here that you've not seen yet. So go back and watch them, because I put so much effort into them, and they're really cool. I do some really cool stuff. So yeah, go back and watch the USA road trip stuff for sure, and the Canada videos. And yeah, have a good day. See you soon.
Oh, you want me to say that?
You have to.
Oh, I have to. Like and subscribe.
No, say it with conviction and look
Please
at the...
like and subscribe. Adam Radcliffe at YouTube,
.com.
Instagram, Facebook.